All right, everybody, welcome back to the High Octane Dads podcast. This is episode 7. We've got a couple good things lined up for you here today. We've been chatting and getting set up. So, Chris, you ready?
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
Got your nice new room you've been setting up for recording out there. It's looking look like it's coming along.
Yeah, don't mind my poor, work, filling the seams, but I still got to tape and putty and, start priming and painting. But the walls are up, everything's insulated. I've got spray foam in all my creases. I've got a window unit over here. So the rest of my garage that's out there is 100 degrees right now. And it's about 68 in here. And I am comfortable.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, that's gonna be nice.
uh, yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I got some mess in here, but it'll be all right. We'll get there.
Yeah, eventually I'm gonna get an area done up a little more, but for right now, this is where I work. This is where I play. It's where I record. But
Yeah.
sometimes you need a break, so I'm gonna get me a little spot
Oh
set
yeah.
up like that as well. So very
Yeah.
cool. All right. Well, we're going to start off. I don't think we've done this. It's been a couple of weeks, I know, since we talked about it, but I think it's only been one episode. But you got any new project updates or anything you've been working on?
Uh, Not really. I mean, I threw that little mini bike together, as you guys saw. We made some reels, some TikToks there right at 4th of July, and I tell you what, that thing is rowdy now. I
Yeah, it
mean,
rips.
yeah, I went from that little slightly modified 196 cc motor that it came with, but it had the jack shaft and clutch. And really ringing that thing out, it'd do like 38 mile an hour or so. And I put this bone stock Predator 224 on it with the China. It's a China Amazon torque converter. And here I am ripping through my neighborhood doing 45 mile an hour. And I'm like, all right, we need to upgrade the brakes. It's got one single drum brake on the back, and I'm sure I outweigh the weight limit by like 100 pounds. So, uh, a few times after stopping it from full speed on my hills out here, I mean, I could definitely tell the brakes are not up to par. So they make some disc brake kits, and that's going to be in the future. But as far as my cars, last week I drove the Volvo a couple days, and I had the serpentine belt explode on me. That was pretty exciting. So I've
Oh, I
got like a
remember that. Yeah.
balled, yeah, I've got a balled up gummy belt in the engine bay right now. I need to get out. And I went and picked up a new belt, but it's been 100 degrees outside. I'm not working on shit when it's that hot. I mean, oh, I guess the only other project, and I told you I was going to vent about it. My wife bought my wife bought she's gonna be pissed, but
At least you'll know she listens.
oh well, she probably won't, but we'll see. But it's just one of those cheap pieces of furniture that you order from wherever, and it's got, I can't remember what they call them. I'll send you the pictures. We can put them up. But it's like a stud and this little metal thing you push in. It just half turns and it locks them together.
Oh, the cam locks.
Yeah, cam locks. That's what it was. And you move it a couple times, everything comes loose and shit starts falling out, and it's all made out of press board. And my God, I hate those things with a passion. And she wanted me to put it together the other day, and I had it all set out, and then I didn't get to it, so that was on me. Well, she started it by herself last night at some point, and
Helping.
I might have had to take everything back apart because everything was backwards. Not everything, but I mean, part of it, some of it was backwards, but the instructions you gave, it had 4 different languages on each page, and the pictures were awful. And so it took me a little bit to figure out what the hell was going on. And then you put these little clip things, the cam locks in there, and then like you move it too much and they jiggle and fall back out. Oh, they piss me off. And any of that cheap ass furniture, and I've built a ton of it over the years, and I get so mad. And once you get it together, it's like, all right, and then you move it a few times, and then shit comes loose again, and I'm not a fan. So that's like a few years ago, we bought a bedroom suit, and we went ahead and bought Amish made uh, bed frame, chest of drawers, dresser, and nightstands, and it was very expensive, but I'm never gonna have to buy a bedroom suit ever again in my life. And that shit is heavy. I'm surprised my bedroom floor holds up. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that's just my little rant. Those little cheap furnitures with the little cam locks, they are, a bane to my existence. I'm not a fan
Yeah, we
at all.
bought my wife like the vanity thing a few years ago, and it was a monster trying to put it all together in the drawers and all the drawer pulls and everything. But yeah, it had a ton of those little cam locks in it, and they're
Oh,
and like you said, you go to put a piece on and you don't realize like it's got like a finished side
oh yeah.
and then a press board side that that it's exposed. If you put it on there backwards, now you got to pull the thing back apart. Yeah,
Yeah. And that's all it was. There was a couple pieces that had like trim pieces that could go either way, but it was only supposed to go one way, and that's all that was wrong. So like I was looking at it and some of the stuff she had done, I'm like, something's not right. I don't know what's going on here. And then I finally had to go through and start pulling stuff off, and it's like, all right, this side you had perfect. This side was just put on backwards. I mean, when you look at it, it's a mirrored image. It's easy to mix it up.
yeah,
And all there was a couple pieces I just had to flip around, but then trying not to break the little dowel pins off, and it's in that press board there's quite a few spots where I mean it's starting to split and I'm like not even really tightening it, and I'm like, man, hopefully you're not really putting a lot of faith into this thing because I'm not.
right. Yep.
But no, that's really all I've got going on. I mean, car's sitting outside now because I've got all this mess going on in the garage again, but I mean, it's been too hot to be outside working on stuff.
Yeah,
And
mine's about where I left it. I went ahead and got a new the pickup tube and oil pump and O-ring and all for the 5.3 that's going in the OBS, and started putting those on. But through moving things around, that was dad's and other stuff, like the garage is just, there's stuff everywhere right now, and so I can't even really get around out there to work too much. But I got to finish getting the catch can on the bird so I can get it going. At least get it back on the road, and I'd like to go make some passes in it. So hopefully that's coming soon. I got some new. I got a helmet that Steve was replacing, and I've got it here. I'm going to take and replace the pads on the inside of it because his noggin's a little bigger than mine.
I was going to say, I mean, um,
Luckily, Pyrotect is good about just having just the replacement liners and pads. Yeah, I put it on just to see tonight. I was like, well, maybe I just need the cheek pads, and when you put it on, like I can pull it all the way down over my eyes and back up, and my whole it just moves forward. And I was reading about really how to know if they fit right, and obviously if it's got that kind of movement in it, and then you have some sort of collision, it's not good. So.
yeah. Like I mean, I've got that race quip helmet, and it's really nice. I really really like it. I'll definitely look into another one again in the future when I need another one. But yeah, I mean, you know, definitely good to have good up to date safety.
Yeah. And speaking of that, that one thing that I've been doing a good bit of looking into lately is I don't know if you've seen or if you follow NHRA a whole lot, but John Force a couple weeks ago, he had a pretty gnarly crash.
Yeah, I saw some of the videos from it.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like, so you look at that crash, and you're focused on the fact that like he's sitting on top of a fireball when that thing goes up. So I mean, it's fire inside there, and I didn't know this, that for the safety of the fans, right? They tether the body down on those cars so that it can't come up, right? And I don't know how. I didn't go super deep into how, if there's like a release, how they get out in a major situation like that. But obviously, like again, he's on top of like this massive fireball. Well, then
I mean, I didn't know that they tether those things down either. I could see why, because you've seen videos where the bodies just lift off of them and fly off into oblivion. But like you said, I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't know they did it. I don't know anything about it.
Well, and so in looking into it, like when he hit the wall, because apparently like the parachute didn't fully deploy either. Like you see the pilot chute come out, but then it never fully came out. I'm wondering. Let's see. Yeah, so when he was going down the track, right, when he hit the wall, they said it was a 300 mile an hour crash. I can't find what the G forces were on it, But I mean, he had a traumatic brain injury. He was in ICU for quite a while. Then he was eventually moved to another hospital where he could begin rehab and physical therapy and all those things. So like he's gonna be okay, but it
Right.
is. They said that John's gonna be fine, but I mean, I want to say I've seen something that like he wasn't listed on the list of NHRA racers, so I don't know. I mean, I would imagine he's probably
Well, and I don't know if it necessarily means anything, but I mean, he is getting up there in age, isn't he? I mean, and I'm sure that something like this, it's going to be a long recovery for him. A lot longer than, let's say, if he was in his 20s or 30s and it happened. So, I
yeah,
mean, and they're probably looking at a safety aspect too. And I mean, even if he does come back and do any type of racing, it might be more like exhibition type runs.
right.
Uh, and to me, that would make sense. I mean, especially, you know, you've built a brand.
His daughter
Everybody knows.
races.
Oh yeah, and everybody knows who John Force is. I mean, like I said, I mean, we talked a little bit about it, off camera, and I mean, people will probably flame us. We're not real car guys or whatever, but we can't keep up with everything, and so I mean, but I mean, hopefully he does, recover fully, and do some sort of racing. So I know everyone would want to see it.
Yeah. But I remember when I was a teenager going with my dad to the Gator Nationals down in Gainesville, Florida. We went for a few years. And matter of fact, that helmet there, that Simpson Racing helmet,
Yeah.
he got for me. We were down at the race, and right on the front of the helmet above the visor, it says John Force 12X. It was signed by John Force, and then I've got Angel Safwala's signature, Antron Brown, a few. There's 6 or 7 signatures on that helmet. So I finally got around this year to putting it in a display case so that it would quit getting dust and stuff on it. And then you can't see it from my mic, but right there is a piston signed by John Force
Oh wow, that's
that
pretty
he
awesome.
had. So that's those things are I'll definitely have those for a long, long time. But yeah, I mean John Force is an icon when it comes to drag racing for sure. And
Oh, absolutely.
much like when in 2001, when Dale Earnhardt passed, right? Like it brought a lot of safety reform to NASCAR. I
Oh, I'm
mean, it
sure it
was
is.
it made a huge difference the way they looked at things and whether they required the Haas devices and all that for your neck. And you hate to see something happen, but if it brings about better safety for the racers and the fans, then you know something good comes of it.
Well, and whole cage builds. I mean, most of the guys that we deal with, our friends, most of those guys are drag racers, and they have 6, 8, 10, 12 point cages, you know 25 2 whatever, and there's a lot of straight line cages, but then I've got friends that are really big into the road racing, and the cages and road racing cars, and I'm guessing like NASCAR style cars are insane. Like you're fully encased, and like the door bars is not just one bar down next to you. I mean, it's built all the way around you. I mean,
Yeah,
and compared to 20 years ago, I'm sure that, like you said, the requirements, technology, and after the Intimidator went down, I'm sure a lot of those safety regulations changed quite a bit.
yep. And it's funny how you remember things, but I remember seeing the Dale Earnhardt wreck. So like you said, I all my life, like I grew up, I played baseball. I've always loved racing, especially if I can be there. But like watching it on TV and things like that, even with stuff like Sick Week and Drag Week, as much as I think they're awesome, like I'm watching coverage from maybe a YouTuber that I follow or something, but like trying to watch the live streams all day. And usually I'm
Yeah.
working, but it's just, it's not something I'm just going to sit there and watch for hours on end by any means. But I remember seeing that wreck and seeing them, put him into the ambulance. And my granddad was, a huge Dale Earnhardt fan, and it was like, surely he's going to be all right. I mean, it was a wreck, and obviously he was. They put him in the ambulance, took him off, but you see this stuff, he's going to be okay, and then you hear he didn't make it, and I mean,
Right.
it's tough. But I remember standing in their kitchen, that day, you know?
Right. So I remember I was in the 7th grade. I had a civics teacher. Her name was Mrs. Weimer, little short woman, and she had dark hair like poofy, and I mean, anyway, you would never think it, but that woman was a diehard NASCAR fan, and I remember her telling us, oh, my car that I drive is like a Toyota Camry, whatever, and it had like, how Toyota did that thing for a while where you get the emblems that were gold plated or whatever.
Hmm.
And that was her daily driver. It was like green with the gold plated badges. But she had went out and bought herself a LS1 fourth gen SS Camaro with the 6 speed. And that was her toy. I mean, this woman was like 5 foot nothing, but she was a diehard NASCAR fan. And I remember her telling me that she had like keepsakes that was like little chunks of rubber from Dale Earnhardt's car.
Wow.
And she had all kinds of stuff that was signed by him. I'm like, that is wild. And like she had like the jacket she would wear to the school every now and then.
That's
I
awesome.
mean, it was, yeah. And I just remember when it happened, she was distraught. You could tell, I mean, it shook her up for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, even like with John Force, like I don't know how. I mean, you have to get back in the saddle, right? In a sense, and he has many many times when he's
Oh,
has
yeah.
accidents. But I mean, there comes a time when you've got kids and grandkids and everything else, and his daughter's carrying on that legacy. She races, I think, Top Fuel. I could see saying, hey, like you said, I'm going to do some exhibition races here or there, or maybe get into something not funny car where you're running 300 mile an hour. But
Yeah.
like, I remember going down with Dad to Gainesville, and they had Shirley Muldowney racing, and Don Garlitz was supposed to be there, and I want to say I heard something, and people can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe they had said that, I don't know if it was like almost like partial retinal detachment or something, but that if he had continued to race, like he would go blind
Oh
because the
God.
G forces of the car stopping and pulling on you, because he raced. I want to say he was Top Fuel as well, and I mean that's just a lot to go from those speeds to 10 or
No.
20 mile an hour. And so I think he did the same thing. Like there were some, and I want to say there were some surgeries, and then he was able to race some, but he still didn't ever like compete like you would have. So I mean, I think
Right.
you just got to know what your limits are, and there's people that'll push beyond those for sure. And I would say that John Force definitely has. I mean, he's been racing a long time, and I mean, I looked it up a minute ago. He's 75, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
long career of racing
Yes,
and a
it
lot of
is.
championships.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he is a staple in everybody knows the name that's in the cars. Everybody's like, "Oh, you do a John Force burnout."
Yeah,
I mean, everybody knows who he is. I mean, that name will always be around, sort of like, all the other greats. I mean, Carroll Shelby.
yep.
I'm horrible with names, but there's a pile of them.
Oh yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, and I looked it up again. So right, so 16-time NHRA and one-time AHRA funny car champion, and a 22-time champion car owner. Right, so he owns his Force Racing, and so that's where his daughter's not raced. So 22 championships under his belt, be it cars he owns or him racing himself, and 16 NHRA championships. I mean, that's impressive, right? So I mean,
It's very, very, very impressive.
nobody could blame somebody for hanging that up and saying, "Hey, I'm good." So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That I mean, like I said, I doubt anyone. If anyone knows who he is and where he's been come from, I mean, no one should doubt it.
for sure, one of the greats.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think like we got to talk about the elephant in the room, right? So
Yeah.
it is just a couple of days from an assassination attempt on former President Trump, right?
Right.
And regardless of where your allegiances lie or party affiliations are, it's disturbing to think that somebody would make an attempt on somebody else's life, political opinions or not,
Right.
and ultimately resulted in someone losing their life and some other critical injuries. And it's
They
it's
were
a
innocent bystanders.
yeah. I mean, the guy was simply shielding his wife and daughter. Um,
Yeah.
I think I read the the statement from his daughter, and I mean it's heartbreaking because he was so excited to go and be there and support his candidate. And again, I don't care where you stand politically, nobody deserves that.
Right.
I've got friends from every walk of life. I've got friends in every political party that you can think of, from Democrat to Republican to Libertarian. And I hate to think that I would lose friends over it, but I mean, regardless of what you feel or believe, nobody deserves to lose their life.
No, and I mean, I will say we talked about it a little bit today at work. I mean, as much as the world is divided right now, or the country, thankfully, we've not had more attempts like this on previous presidents, people in different offices than we have. I mean, I want to say, who was the last one that Reagan, maybe.
Yep.
I want to say that was the last one that I can think of off the top of my head. And I know in history it's happened many times before, but I mean, we try to be more modern, more civilized, and
Well, I think it's just, it's something that we've got to address as a nation, that regardless, we're incredibly divided right now, along every line that you can think of at this point, it seems like. And it's disturbing. And I was telling somebody about this the other day, that it maybe feels like you're at a point where it's difficult to come back from. And they said, well, I'm sure people in the 60s and 70s said the same thing, right? But I do feel like, and I was talking to my granddad about this, I feel like back then, though, there was at least still a sense of
respect,
pride in country, and pride in what the USA is founded on, that even when you differed in opinion, maintaining our nation was, the number one. And you were trying to find the candidate that was going to help keep our nation what it should be, without regard to necessarily how it was going to push a particular agenda, or what was best for me specifically, right?
And for me, the best candidate would be, I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, independent, whoever would be the best fit for overall. I mean, the problem is you're not going to make everyone happy with anything. I mean, anything in life. I mean, somebody's always going to bitch about something. I mean, the person who's going to legitimately get up there and try to do the best that they can for everyone, there's only so much you can do. And they're only one person. And, they don't have all of the control. A lot of it these days is, whoever they are, that, it's a person that's up there almost for show in a sense. It's not, fully, but I mean, you need someone that's a good face to represent, but also, be stern and have a good head on their shoulders. Do I always agree with everything that President Trump has said? No. I mean, and the same thing goes for, past presidents. I mean, you want me to rant again, don't you?
It's always fun when I can get you going.
We talked a little bit off air, and we didn't have it recorded, and I just kind of went in a tangent, and we didn't record it, but we might get there again.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
But I think the important message here, and you're going to have people, unfortunately, the truth is, I know where I stand, right? But again, no matter what side you're on, both sides are going to use it as an opportunity to fan any flames that they can. Trump's up in the polls in a lot of states since what happened. And I mean, how badass is it to get shot at and be like, you know what? I'm still here. You didn't get me. You know what I mean? Like
many.
Yeah. Did you see I guess you did see the clip of
Yeah.
50 Cent. They put the meme up with Trump's face on his body.
Yeah.
The internet is going to internet, I tell you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. The internet is a great place and an awful place, but when something bad happens in the world, it never disappoints.
Yeah.
And I mean, some people are like, "Oh, you shouldn't joke about this stuff." To an extent, I agree, but at the same time, life's too short to not. I mean, given it's not a joke, but one thing that baffles me the most about it like you said, regardless of who you support, what your beliefs in, nobody necessarily deserves to die. He's not out there killing people. He's not, Hitler. I mean, it's not the world we live in these days. He's not out there killing, thousands of millions of people. He said mean words. Um, but what kills me the most is I have friends that support the other way, and or just support something different, and they're great people. But then to see some of the stuff and to see some of the way these people lash back out at other people, like especially on social media about this, and they're just like, "Oh, just a couple more inches, and we would have, it would have been better." And I'm like, really? I mean, that's not the way. That's not how to get us to a better position.
Yeah,
And
not at all.
no, and like I've told these people, I'm like, well, if you feel that way, and you see, I'm not, I can't do it, but because we're going to be, I don't want to be too biased, but I mean, until we get a better third party, um, you really do have to look at your options. And out of the options we have, you just have to make who has the best. Uh, I want to say can make the most cognitive decisions. And I'm just saying that kind of one of them, I had family that had similar issues and they weren't all there.
Right.
That's all I'm gonna say about it. And it makes me feel bad, for them because you could tell that they don't know what's going on.
Right.
But there's a lot more to it. And I'm sure people will bitch, oh yeah, yeah, whatever. But I mean, it is like you said, the people don't deserve necessarily to die. They're not out there killing millions of people or other people like, oh well, they didn't. He's trying to prevent people from coming in the country. What about the people in the country? I mean,
Yeah.
that need help and aid. I don't know. You're getting me. Stop.
Well, look, man. I mean, at the end of the day, though, the reason that you even have to
I
worry
lost
about.
you.
Can you not hear me?
Boils down to, I mean, you got to think of the extra casualties that happen. I mean, there's innocent people that were in danger. I definitely we can really go down a rabbit hole on conspiracy theories on this, but just kind of
Yeah.
watching some of the coverage on it and how lax they were as far as security and the surrounding areas and buildings they never even checked. And they're showing people out there pointing at this dude, hey, there's a fucking guy up here on the on this building. And
Yeah.
I mean, you can see the dude doing like the worm on the building, scooting up the building. I mean,
Yeah, it was very
nobody
odd. I
did.
mean, I can see in a way like this was just, some rally in a state, right? It wasn't, the RNC or anything like that. And I mean, I could see that it was maybe just a lapse in judgment or a not a miscommunication, but a breakdown of where like Secret Service's responsibilities began and ended, and where the local police began and ended. But then when you've got guys who are like, hey, what's this guy doing now? I could see that at an event like that, it could be like, hey, is it just some drunk guy who's decided he wants a better look? I don't know. But from what I've seen, some people are also saying like we could see that he had a rifle. They were trying to tell the police. So yeah, I don't ascribe to know what
Well,
all.
I mean, this is a high profile, politician. I
Yeah.
mean,
And a lot of
both
high
sides,
tension.
right? And I would think that any of the parties or any of the candidates that are running that should have thorough security protecting them and the bystanders, supporters, that was definitely a drop. Somebody dropped the ball there.
Absolutely.
Or, I mean, if we want to get into conspiracy theories, I mean, it might have been planned. I mean, who knows? We'll never know the truth, I'm sure.
Yeah, oh, yeah. No, you never will. And there's a one of the funnier reels that I've come across is a stand up comedian, and he's talking about, he said, I get not believing in a lot of conspiracy theories, right? Like a lot of them are out there, right? But
Mhm.
how does he put it? He says, the government is put in charge of all of its people.
Mm-hmm.
And we're dads, right? And he says, I'm a father. He said, and I'm put in charge of one person. He said, and I lie to that kid all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's just, there's a lot that maybe we'll never know about just because it's not a need to know, or, they don't want to cause hysteria, right? So, I mean, you'll never know the truth of what happened there. If it really was just a lapse in coverage, so to speak, or,
right.
Was there somebody that made sure there wasn't coverage or whatever it is? I don't ascribe to possibly know. But the whole thing is very unfortunate. And what I was getting at earlier, and the reason you have to kind of be careful even what you say nowadays is it's not even, you can't even have an opinion anymore.
No.
And if you do have an opinion by one side or the other, you are just, indicted in the court of public opinion, and there's no coming back from that.
No, and there's not, and I'm trying not to bring it.
I was trying to talk you down, man.
I know when I was a kid, I don't remember a whole lot. My parents were not into politics very much, and the thing that I remember the most as a kid was the whole Bill Clinton ordeal. And I just remember watching it on TV. And when I was a kid, the way I always understood it, the presidents, whoever, they might always, not do everything you want or whatever, but they're still respected. There was always a respect.
Yeah, I mean, that was always the thing. Growing up, I remember, no matter how the presidential election went, the night of that election, when the concession speech is made and they call the other candidate and they seed the race, that at that point, the race is over. That is now your president. And you may not like them. You may not like all their policies and everything that they do, but you support your president as an American. And I think, honestly, that began to erode away in the,
social media.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. And the thing is, during, George W.'s administration, right, there started to be a lot of animosity toward the president, much more. I mean, there's the video of the guy throwing the shoe at him at the press conference and all that. So I remember that from being like a teenager. And
and you figure after 9/11,
right,
and a lot of people did not agree with how he handled things.
Yep.
I will say that right afterwards, I think that is the most united that our country has been.
Yep.
But then it went the other way somewhere not long after that. But also not long after that is when, the whole social media, blogs, MySpace, all that shit really started coming out. So you have all these people that can really get their voices out there. Not necessarily saying it's always a bad thing, because here we are, we're able to get our voices out now.
Yep.
But now there's so much that's just flooding, and you get so much information, and you get some people that are just so negative, and they will constantly put shit out that they're right there in your face, and that's all you see.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm definitely feeling it, especially like in workplaces, like, you get around a lot of people with a certain mindset, you start to feel that way. If it be good or bad, the people you surround yourself with. If somebody puts out a lot of negative stuff, it's going to bleed into a lot of people, and it's a very, very, a dangerous thing.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and it was a big topic of discussion at one point around how, social media algorithms are designed to show you things it knows you want to see to keep your eyeballs on them. And I could go way down on a tangent because I'm a tech guy. I've been in IT for a long time. They're invested in keeping your eyes on that screen, and not only on that screen, but in their app. And they're going to show you things that, make you feel good. Sometimes they're going to show you things that make you upset to, make sure you stay engaged and you're commenting and arguing with people. And, that's just the nature of what it is, because they're making money as long as you're seeing the advertisements that they're selling. So, but then even outside of that, countries outside of ours, and I will say this was brought up even in President Biden's speech last night when he addressed the assassination attempt on Trump, was that foreign nations and foreign actors are using our social media to make sure that they're feeding us things to sow even more division. A lot of the stuff that's dividing us now has begun to boil, inside of our nation, but a lot of it started not here.
Oh yeah. So that reminds me. So the other night, I made that TikTok on my personal page, and all it was the famous photo that's going around right now,
Right.
and with the 50 Cent song. I posted it, and it had nothing that showed anything derogatory. It didn't have any uh hashtags that were, in my mind, that were very controversial.
Hmm.
But TikTok had to review it before they ever put it up. It has very, very little views
Yeah.
once it did go live. What does that tell you?
Yep.
I mean,
Well, and I read a thing. This has been several years ago because and I didn't agree with it. Right, as I'm reading it, it's like that statistically, we live in one of the safest times in the history of our planet. But I challenge you to find a single person, other than
feels that
maybe the
way.
guy that wrote that article, who actually believes that. But the truth is that we see news from all over the world, not just our nation, but everywhere. And so I might live in my little town, and there's crime everywhere. There's things that happen, but there might not be any major crime that happens for a good period of time. But yet, what I'm seeing on my social media feeds and in the news are all these things happening clear across the nation, and in your mind you start to make connections. We're designed and developed to see patterns. And you start to see all these things. You're like, oh, well, that thing happened here, and it happened in this other state, and it happened there, and then it happened 2 towns over for me. It must be a rampant problem. It must be that we're just the world is crumbling and it's falling apart. And you almost they call it doom scrolling, but you build up this hysteria around how bad things are, and then you need an enemy.
Oh yeah,
And the enemy is
absolutely.
the person that doesn't have the same view as you. And now, next thing you know, we're all turning on each other, and that's just
Oh yeah.
at the end of the day, it's like we said, when we were teenagers, the way that I remember it being is that once the election was over, that is your president. We are
Mhm.
Americans. And at the end of the
Right.
day, it is our responsibility to remain united, because at the end of the day, the wolf is at the door,
Hmm.
right?
That, and I think a lot of the issue that is today is everybody is, what can you do for me? Well, me,
Hmm.
me, me. They're worried about the individual, and I know everybody wants to be happy and prosper and have the best. It's not necessarily a give and take, but it is. You have to figure, sit down and really understand. Well, just because I want this doesn't mean everybody does. Um, but everybody's just so focused on themselves. Somebody might say, they just they're complete opposite right away. They don't
Yeah,
want to hear anymore.
exactly. Well, and the truth is, like, I'm fine with everybody looking out for what it is that they need or want out of life. But the truth is that the only person responsible for making sure that you get what you want out of life is you.
Exactly.
I try to tell my kids that, and I know my dad told me that. Nobody out there is going to make sure your dreams come true.
Right.
You've got to go make sure that your dreams come true. That's not to say that you won't have help from time to time,
Oh yeah.
and you've got to be
Absolutely.
willing to ask for help. But you've
Yep.
also got to be willing to stand up and go for what you want out of life.
Right.
And I think now we've just we've got a lot of I want this life, but I just deserve it.
Yeah.
That sense of
And
entitlement, right? And I'll never be able to support just a sense of entitlement that you should just be handed what you want simply because you want it.
right. And like you said, you have to work for it, plain and simple. And it might not be what you always want to hear, but I mean, some people get things handed to them, but you don't know everything they have going on in their life. Maybe, hey, it looks great, but there's a lot of shit that isn't great. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
I
we
don't know.
we see a lot of our friends that own businesses, and do things, and you wonder how they do some of the things they do. And what do you always hear? Must be nice. Must be nice to work for yourself, be able to do all that. Must be nice to buy all those race car parts. But the truth is, you don't see the late nights that they put in,
Yep.
and the months where the money was tight. Or, if you see them doing well, even on those months when maybe business isn't as great, it's because they were smart and they put some
Yeah.
money back,
Oh
and
yeah.
they were ready for when winter came. And that's, it's just a matter of personal responsibility. And used to, it was a good measure of a person of how, how they took responsibility for their lives and their outcomes. And,
Oh yeah.
now it's all about what you have and not how you got it.
Yeah, and that's really easy to fall into because everybody wants stuff. And
Sure.
and I mean, I think about sometimes I'm like, man, I'm fucking broke. I mean, feel like I'm scrounging by. And there's been times, I mean, typically my wife and myself, we don't have huge money arguments. We're not super well off, but then I sit and really think about it. I'm like, nobody's hungry. I mean, the
Yep.
power's on, we got air conditioning. I mean, there's food, drink. And then like I go to my garage and I start looking around. And yeah, there's a lot of junk laying around, but then I'm like, I keep looking, I'm like, this is all my junk. And
It's all stuff you've
it's
accumulated over time.
right, and it's stuff I've accumulated, and I think back to, like, when I was a kid in school and trying to build cars, and I'm like, "Man, I just want a 350 to build." And I'm like, "Somebody wants $350 for this old piece of shit," or like I couldn't find stuff. I've given 4 or 5 of them away over the years because after a while, I'm like, "This shit's sitting around and I don't need it anymore." You never know. Things come, things go, and, like, anytime, let's say money is always brought up. I try not to get too stressed about it. I'm like, things always work out, but you have to be willing to work for it
Yeah.
in some sense, in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Nothing, nothing good is going to come for free. I mean, and
Oh
like I
no.
said, that's not to say you're never going to get somebody to help you out. If you're in a position, you help other people out, you know,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, if you're going to want to have any lasting happiness and security, I think you got to get out and work for it for sure. So
Oh, absolutely. And if you feel like you're stuck, find a way to change it. There's always ways to get out and to do something else. Really working on that.
yeah, you have to not be too prideful to ask for help if you need it, and help might just be somebody to talk to, bounce ideas off of, and figure out another way because they might have a perspective that you don't.
Like us, we talked so long about doing this podcast, and I mean, hey, it never we may not ever really amount to anything other than just me and you hanging out talking.
Yep.
And but that's its own therapy in itself. I mean, everybody sometimes just needs someone just to shoot the shit with about anything and everything.
Yep.
And another thought I've had about this, I heard about it on another podcast a few years ago. Is the Mind Pump podcast,
Yeah, those guys are
and
great.
I love them. But how much do you wish? And I know it's probably fresh for you, like with your dad, that you had more audio and video of your dad
Oh,
out there floating around.
100%.
You could just sit back and watch, listen to him. Well, you think about all these hours that we'll have saved and recorded. It'll be out on the internet. And let's say 10, 20 years from now, God forbid, you're gone. Your kids can go back and pull all this up
Yep.
and just, see you in a point where you're talking about something that you're passionate about and see you having fun or see you upset and see all your different emotions and can remember some of these stories that we talk about. I know we're going a little bit deep here, but I mean, I've thought about it a lot and I'm like, there's, people in my life that I wish that I had more of that stuff from. And I mean, a lot of it was from earlier, when a lot of this wasn't as accessible. Even if it doesn't become a monetary gain in the long run, I still think it's a gain in other ways.
I never thought of it from that angle of
Mhm.
that one day that it would persist long enough that if my kids were like, hey, I wonder what dad was like when he was younger,
Right.
or I don't remember, right, that they'd be able to
That
go and
got your
find
wheels
this. But
turning.
yeah, now it's got me really introspective and deep tonight. So thanks for that. I'll be up for quite a while. But yeah, I mean, I would love to have that insight into when my dad was in his 30s.
Yeah.
Like I've got his stories that he told me, right? And
Oh, yeah.
a lot of times some people might say, thank God there was no video recordings or evidence of stuff that they did when they were in their 30s. But
Well, then the flip side of it is, I'll tell you the one thing that really irks me, and I do it, and I try not to do it as much. But like when I go to like car events, go to concerts, go to whatever, enjoy it. Try not to sit there staring at it through a phone.
yeah,
We went to a local concert for 4th of July in our local park, and there was a bunch of people doing it, but there was a woman kind of diagonally to us, And anytime the band would play or the fireworks, she was just like that the whole time,
Yeah.
watching it through her phone, recording a video. And I'm like, all right, come on now. It's a show in a park. I get it. You wanted to show somebody, but I'm thinking, I'm sitting there. I looked over a couple times and watched. I am not gonna sit there and watch some 4 or 5 minute video somebody took in a field in a park of some concert or
Yeah.
fireworks. I
PSA,
mean,
nobody's watching your Facebook story of fireworks ever.
yeah, and I know I do dumb shit like Snapchat, whatever. But I mean, everybody does.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But you're right though. I mean, I try when we go and do stuff to experience it, right? Like you want enough pictures that you look back one day and go, hey, okay, I remember we went to that event, and then it kind of triggers you to think about the things that you did.
oh,
But that's and even with going to things like that, or just in your everyday life, right? Like the idea that like my marketing and media company with doing motorsports photography and stuff could eventually maybe take me to a place where I don't punch a clock on a 9 to 5. I have no dream of doing that and this for wealth. I mean, that's not to say that it wouldn't be awesome, right? But the idea is that it sustains your life and gives my kids the life that they want and buys my time. And my time can be spent with my kids. And that is the ultimate thing. When you get to the real heart of when most people talk about why they want money, why they want super high paying jobs, it's not so much about going and buying stuff. Like there's going to be a component of that, right? But most people want freedom. They want choice to live on their terms and go and do the things that they want to do. And if you're very lucky, you've got a job like that in an industry or something that you care about enough that work doesn't always feel like work.
oh yeah,
To an extent, it will in anything that you do.
yeah.
I
You have good days and bad days, and where some days where you're just mentally not there or physically not there, and you're like, man, this sucks. But ultimately, like you said, you want something that you enjoy doing, that makes you happy, especially emotionally, and it gives you that freedom, either financially or allows you to have the time to have a good home work life balance.
yeah, for sure.
And that's what I'm working on.
Well, I figured we'd end on a lighter topic because we
Man, we
got so
went.
heavy with the political stuff, and not that we ever want to talk politics, but I think it was important to be said. But the truth is, I was having a tough couple of days, and I've definitely been looking forward to get together and doing this recording. So this was great. I feel a lot better. Like you said,
Yeah,
maybe it is a form of therapy for us.
yeah. Well, I had a really rough weekend. Really in my head. May have drank a few too many adult beverages. Spent most of Sunday laying in bed. So this definitely is a nice pick me up. And it comes back to that mindset of surrounding yourself, with people with different mindsets, and that definitely makes a big difference. Because you get around a bunch of people that are negative enough, it does bring you down, and it's nice to get a change of pace.
Yeah, and I think it's super important. If I can leave with anything, or leave all the folks listening with something, is that being around people with differing opinions from your own and different perspectives is not a bad thing. If
Oh no, not
anything,
at all.
it's gonna open your eyes some. Be open minded enough to hold those conversations, but don't hold grudges.
Mhm.
And I think things would be a lot better. At the end
Yep.
of the day, most people are not bad people.
No, and if you're basing it on somebody's their gender, their religion, their political views, unless they're doing something to physically hurt somebody or a group of people, or maybe even severely emotionally hurt a group of people, um, they're not necessarily bad people. I mean, you need to look deeper than that. I know people than all sorts of different walks of life, and most of those people would really fight and argue with each other, but individually, they're not always bad people. It's just what the world tells us that we need to be like, and that's what these people will take on. And you got to look past that.
For sure. Well, good deal. Well, like I said, I enjoyed this afternoon, this evening, and I'm going to stop the recording now, and we'll pick up next week with episode 8.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. Well, have a good evening, folks.
All right. See y'all.